G'day, Bruce Paige from 9 Gold Coast News. Let's get this party started.
Final judging begins this week for Jupiter's Summer Surf Girl, the annual fundraiser for Surf Lifesaving Queensland. And Paige, it started 47 years ago.
It did, Heather, yes, it certainly did. And the current entrants are carrying on a fine tradition. Just don't call it a beauty contest. Even in the 40s, beauty pageants weren't new to Australia. Many young women dreamt of winning a title and a crown. Entrants in competitions such as Miss Australia drew crowds wherever they went. It was the era of glamour as we shook off the constraints of war and celebrated the fabulous 50s. Then in 1964, a quest which proved entrants were more than just a pretty face. It was Lifesaving's Summer Surf Girl, a vital fundraiser for much-needed equipment. A fresh-faced Joy Chambers became the very first winner. She would go on to become a well-known actress and author. In 1975, it was Karen Nielsen, now a renowned swimwear designer.
To represent our local club was considered, you know, a great opportunity and a great way to help raise funds for the club.
But even in those days, when lifesaving was strictly for men, each entrant was required to learn resuscitation. Then, in 1981, when women could finally don the red and yellow, entrants could only be picked from within.
We all have to have our bronze medallion, so that's a part of becoming a surf lifesaver. Other than that, we all do hold further awards.
There's still the fundraising, but also 12 months of surf promotion.
I went into the universities with the international students and brought them down to our club and onto the beach to teach them about surf safety.
So, whatever you do, don't call it a beauty contest.
It's what we do for surf lifesaving, and it's about the future of surf lifesaving.
Girls wouldn't dare. The winner will be announced next Saturday night. Very remarkable young women, and Heather, great ambassadors for the movement.
And great fundraisers too. Thanks, Paige.
Next Saturday, Queensland celebrates 145 years of train travel. Ahead of that milestone, a look tonight at how trains made this state what it is today. Looking back down the track, rail had humble beginnings. Our first line between Ipswich and Grantchester was opened in 1865.
I've been building railways around the world for at least 30 or 40 years by then. I knew how to do it.
Brisbane came next with a rail network centred on Roma Street. Rail freight was in demand as Queensland became decentralised. More shunting yards were needed.
So they were looking for a new location and they chose Main Junction. And it was also known back in those days as the Jackson Horse Paddock.
Central Queensland then threatened to form a separate state unless its rail services were as good as Brisbane's.
Sandgate was Brisbane's resort railway here from Roma Street. Rockhampton said again, we want our own railway or else, and they got one to Emu Park.
Before the Sunlander, our first long-distance passenger service between Brisbane and Cairns was the Sunshine Express in 1935. When Japan threatened to invade a few years later, more trains were needed to transport troops and supplies. This is one of the old steam locos that serviced towns and communities across the state during the Second World War. The American-made C-16s were among the fastest in the world.
Queensland Railways, we actually bought 20 of these, and they're pretty much a Jeep. Go anywhere, do anything steam locomotive.
In 1947, our worst rail disaster claimed 16 lives at Camp Mountain near Samford. Considered too steep, that line was ripped up, but others were opened. The groundwork for a successful future.
We have a vision for our company today saying that we're the heartbeat of what is a rapidly growing state. And I think that's been true of the history of Queensland Rail as well.
To sport now with heels.
Brisbane's majestic Regent Theatre will close next month and the 80-year-old building will be demolished for a new high-rise. So tonight, Bruce Paige remembers its glory days.
Today, it's hardly noticeable in the Queen Street Mall, but once the Regent was very popular.
When the Regent came on the scene, it was such an imposing, massive, opulent building. People just flocked to see what was inside, and they loved it.
Movies, musicals and plays, and on occasion, drama of a different kind. In the 40s, fire destroyed 200 of its 2,000 seats. And before his conviction for the Whiskey A Go-Go killings, infamous criminal John Andrew Stewart escaped from a hospital in 1962 to hide in the theatre. He surrendered after police fired warning shots.
Today, one of those bullet holes remains in the ceiling, and it is currently up there.
In 1978, the Regent was carved up into 4 smaller cinemas. This time, a developer intends to build a 38-storey office block on the site. This heritage-listed grand foyer of the Regent will be preserved in the new building, but sadly, much of this historic building will be demolished. The famous Showcase Cinema, with its lavish decor and trimmings, the adjoining bar and vestibule, and the rear facade have been found to be unworthy of saving. Upsetting for movie critic Des Partridge.
It's a very sad day.
Des, what was your first experience of the Regent?
They had the organist who would rise onto the stage at the interval, and then you'd be entertained, and then there'd be the lolly boys selling the ice creams and candy.
The Regent has been the home of the annual Brisbane International Film Festival. While organisers are now looking for a new venue, the Regent's own Farewell Film Festival will culminate with a party next Sunday, marking the end of an era. For over 50 years, we've been sneaking a peek at one of the season's most tightly guarded secrets, the theme of the Christmas windows. It all started at McWhirter's in Fortitude Valley.
Like 6 deep at the windows, and they'd queue right up Brunswick Street, right round the corner.
In 1957, Beauty and the Beast enthralled the crowds. In 1960, it was Sleeping Beauty. Neptune's Kingdom greeted us in 61, and a nativity scene in 62.
Because life was so simple then, and we didn't have all the Christmas lights competitions and things like that.
So this was a pilgrimage not to be missed. By the time Jocelyn Byles' own children arrived, Maya was keeping the magic alive.
So I stand there and I have to quickly read what's in the window. It's hard to keep up.
My favourite one was the window over the last one where he spilt his ice cream, balancing on the ball.
Our first Christmas tree, however, dates back about 120 years. 1891 is the earliest record of a Christmas tree in Brisbane. 600 children gathered at the Old Town Hall, where Lennon's is now, to enjoy a tradition introduced to the Commonwealth by Queen Victoria's German husband, Prince Albert. In 1954, it became an annual event, the massive hoop pine sourced from Mount Crosby.
Along the route, people would turn out and stand there and applaud the tree as it made its stately progress into town.
By the mid-70s, an artificial tree was being used, and these days, it's even solar-powered.
And it takes about 10 people a week and a half to put up.
And it's as awe-inspiring today as all those decades ago. For more photos, or to share your own, visit ourbrisbane.com.
Oh, it was just unreal, it was just magical.
One of the most experienced newsmen in the business presents Bruce Paige Remembers. And tonight, Paige looks at Ipswich and one family's priceless catalogue of its history.
It's rare footage, showing a city proud to celebrate its past. In 1960, these well-heeled leaders came together to commemorate Ipswich's centenary. Ipswich is a city steeped in history. But now its past is becoming a whole lot clearer thanks to the generosity of a local family.
We realised the significance of the collection and the importance it was to the history of Ipswich.
Greg Whitehead is Ipswich born and bred. In 1883, his great-grandfather opened Whitehead Studios. And for the next 100 years, the family photographed a city in the making. Not just its grand architecture, but families creating a future.
There's well over 6,000 photographs.
Pictures the family has now donated to council.
It's great to see the old ex-chair in all the photographs. It's a family heirloom now.
Prior to donation, most of the collection had been kept under a house.
Maybe pretty good conditions actually. It was cool and it was dark.
Portrait's a specialty. Whitehead Studios even photographed the likes of Lady Lamington, wife of the Governor.
Moreton Shire amalgamated with Ipswich, and we still got the photos, 1917, 1919, all captured by Whiteheads. It just doesn't get any better than that.
From the balcony of their city studios, they recorded events of the day. Even 2 different floods, 80 years apart.
It's quite amazing actually when you look at those photographs back in the 1890s through to the floods in 1974, just how similar some of the photographs are as to where the water came.
The Whitehead collection will feature on the Picture Ipswich website, so everyone can see how a city has changed and stayed the same.
To have something where in excess of 6,000 items to be donated to your city shows the fabric of a really good corporate citizen, and I say thank you, Whitehead Studios.
It's a sight Brisbane hopes to never see again. Empty terminals and a shattered tourism industry.
I'd like to have a little badge that says Punch a Pilot.
In 1989, 2 players dominated our skies, the government's Australian Airlines and privately run Ansett. In July, the government pilot started fighting for a 30% pay rise, Ansett for contract clarification. Fatefully, they joined forces, starting what should have been 3 days of rolling stoppages.
Well, I've got news for them.
The response was unprecedented. Prime Minister Bob Hawke sided with the airlines, authorising the RAAF and international carriers to fill the void. Within a week, amid mounting airline losses, more than 1,600 pilots resigned to avoid being sued, but continued their campaign. The move backfired as airlines started the slow process of hiring offshore. The country was crippled. An estimated 500,000 people cancelled Christmas holidays. On the Gold Coast, tourism workers pleaded for their livelihood. At Noosa and Brisbane, the PM forced to run the gauntlet of angry pilots. It was an industrial standoff that lasted 8 months. Finally, in March, the pilots surrendered, hoping for their jobs back. 80% were never rehired, many headed overseas.
If you're ready to take off, so are the airlines.
But by then, not even John Farnham could recover a $1 billion loss to the economy or the thousands of job casualties.
On Ramsey Street.
Oh my God, they're watching us.
Neighbours tonight at 7 on 10.
Tonight, police crack the Gold Coast sand dune murder mystery. Commonwealth Games officials outraged as Aussie athletes frolic in Auckland, and the state government gets tough to beat the road toll.
This is the 10 Evening News with Bruce Paige.
Good evening. The search for the Gold Coast sand dune killer is over. A 24-year-old drifter has allegedly confessed to the murder of teenager Miles Buerson after being arrested.
Years tonight, 7:30, followed by Married with Children.
Welcome back, and a particular welcome to viewers in central Queensland joining us tonight through RTQ television in Rock.
Friday, Saturday and Sunday, clearing for back to work Monday. I can only apologise now for that forecast. Just spoiling the weekend a little.
Thank you, Gary. Well, before we go tonight, can I share some news that is very close to home? Over recent months, my family and I have been contemplating life after television. After 40+ years in this business, and it really is one I love, that's a very big thing to get your head around. But I've decided it's time to start exploring the world, and I want you to know that I'll be stepping down from this chair in a few weeks. A tough decision, but with the support of my family and my friends here at 9, it is the right one. I'll still be doing what I can to help out here at 9, so it really won't be goodbye, but rather see you later. And Melissa, that's the news for you this Wednesday.
A very big Wednesday. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow night at 6. Good night.
Now, Bruce, you had a very interesting morning.
Oh, I did. I switched the news desk for a sumo wrestling ring. Somehow roped into this interesting radio stunt with the Hot Tomato breakfast crew. It's hard to believe, but this was the easy part this morning. With a bit of help from my co-anchor, I was ready to take on Hot Tomato Sean Flanagan, battling for this prize oyster. Is it too late? So how did we get here? It all started with a dream Flan had. He and I were tussling over an oyster, but he woke up before he found out who got to eat it, and has been eating away at him ever since. So he challenged me to a sumo fight for a very obvious prize.
Let's get ready to tumble!
Round one saw Big Flan hit the canvas first, but a rematch was demanded because we didn't actually make contact. Round two, a far more even contest, but I ultimately emerged victorious.
Flan, never again.
Bruce is a lovely bloke. I had no idea he was the sort of bloke that'd fight over an oyster, but there you go.
And I loved every minute of it.
Bruce, I never doubted you.
Lovely oysters.
On Ramsey Street. They're watching us. Neighbours tonight at 7 on 10.
Tonight, police crack the Gold Coast sand dune murder mystery. Commonwealth Games officials outraged as Aussie athletes frolic in Auckland, and the state government gets tough to beat the road toll.
This is the 10 Evening News with Bruce Paige.
Good evening. The search for the Gold Coast sand dune killer is over. A 24-year-old drifter has allegedly confessed to the murder of teenager Miles Buerson after being arrested.
Years tonight 7:30, followed by Married with Children.
Welcome back, and a particular welcome to viewers in central Queensland joining us tonight through RTQ television in Rock.
At 7:30 on 9, there's a special edition of What's Good For You with important information about swine flu. But from us,
good night.
Good night.
Remember the days when libraries were a place for books and hush. Our first were called School of Arts, private institutes, originally started on the First Fleet to promote scientific and technical knowledge through reading and lectures. They were taken over by councils in the 1940s after a scandalous national audit described the dated collections as wretched. World War II postponed our local library boom until the 60s, when Brisbane alone opened one a year for 18 years.
They become more of a community centre now, where we have arts displays, we have ceramic displays, we have ethnic arts.
They were cutting edge. Audio cassette tapes, the latest technology. In 1979, the Grange Library was the biggest and the best, and Children's Book Week was a brand new concept.
Oh, they're definitely important. Without children, we wouldn't have any future.
Story time, craft displays and games like chess were offered as youthful enticements.
Quick, Emma, get off this silly cloak.
Those children of the 70s are still involved with libraries, though paper may have given way to tablets, and chess is now played online. Despite the advent of the internet, there are more public libraries in Queensland than McDonald's, and half the population are members. Books are still the main resource, though one casualty of the computer age is the reference section, superseded by search engines. So, get informed, fire your imagination, all for free, all from the comfort of a chair.
Brisbane Airport has just been officially named a suburb, but as Bruce Paige recalls, if it wasn't for World War II, planes might be landing in a completely different part of the city.
It was a warm Brisbane welcome in the days before gangways. Passengers forced to brave the elements on the open-air tarmac. With the bonus for the public, a front-row view of visiting celebrities. Kings of pop, even the Queen, separated from fans only by fences. First chain wire, then glass. It was a far cry, though, from the paddock that greeted our first flight back in 1922. Not much better for Sir Charles Kingsford Smith in 1928, after the first Pacific Ocean crossing. And in 1930, a fence almost grounded Amy Johnson when she became the first woman to fly solo from Britain. In 1931, Eagle Farm was closed down, deemed too swampy. Operations moved to Archerfield Airport. Thanks to the Americans, it was rebuilt during World War II as a military base. When the war ended, Hangar 7, which once hid top-secret projects, became a domestic terminal, and flights again resumed from Eagle Farm. By the 60s, the site reached its limits. Too small, no air conditioning, and nightmare parking. The final straw, new, heavier jumbo jets, and the 82 Commonwealth Games.
The runway landing areas were failing quite rapidly, and we had to often repair them on a weekly basis.
But for Expo 88, a brand new purpose-built airport. The international terminal following in 95, making a touchdown in Brisbane a world away from those pioneering aviation days.
Brisbane turns to National 9 News and Bruce Paige for experience. He's committed to fairness and accuracy. He sets the standard for others to follow. That's why, when it's important, Brisbane turns to National 9 News with Bruce Paige. From January 22, Brisbane's #1 newsman brings his experience to the desk of the 10 Evening News.
Good evening, this is Bruce Paige.
Then at 6:30...
Join me from January the 22nd for Brisbane with Anna McMahon.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight on National 9 News. Premier for the past 19 years. In all, more than 100,000 people saw the Pope speaking after 4 hours of extraordinary scenes in State Parliament. Australia has lost a national treasure, the focus of the nation.
Experience. That's why you see it first on the Win News Hour.
Well, yes, it has been another moment in history that I've been privileged to have had the opportunity to tell you about. It has been a wonderful journey. Thanks to you for continuing to tune in over all those years, and please look after one another. But now, I have to say, that's the news for you this Friday. Good night.
From Channel 9 Brisbane, this is National 9 News with Bruce Paige, Robin Parkin and Rob Bruff.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight on National 9 News. Premier for the past 19 years. He ended his 40-year career at 4 o'clock. In all, more than 100,000 people saw the Pope speaking, travelling and praying in Brisbane.
You'll love it.
It was only natural that some of the Expo entertainment relied on poking fun at the robots, those electronic upstarts that seem to be trying to take over. They're about to begin drilling the major rescue tunnel. But there is a warning that goes with that, and that is that this is now the most dangerous stage. And so, this is my old hometown, but make no mistake, it looks like a battle zone.
Looking forward, looking back, I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know.
But I've decided it's time to start exploring the world, and I want you to know that I'll be stepping down from this chair.
Looking forward, looking back, I've come a long way down the track, got a long way left to go, making songs from what I know, making songs from what I know, looking forward, looking back.
Well, it has been a momentous news day, and that is a fitting way to farewell a man who spent most of his life right here behind the news desk. Paige, we wish you and Marley all the very best on this next chapter of your lives, and we look forward to dragging you back here every now and then, back up to Mount Cooper to help us out.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, yes, it has been another moment in history that I've been privileged to have had the opportunity to tell you about. It has been a wonderful journey. Thanks to you for continuing to tune in over all those years, and please look after one another. But now, I have to say, that's the news for you this Friday. Good night.
Say happy birthday.
And what a wonderful crowd we have
Yeah.
on your 70th birthday, and after close to 50 years on our screens, we thought it was only fitting we take a look back at where it all started.
Evening, Bruce Paige in Brisbane with...
He's been bringing us the evening news since the early 70s. First with the ABC, then finding his true home here at Channel 9.
From Channel 9 Brisbane, this is National 9 News with Bruce Paige.
Trusted and welcomed into lounge rooms across Queensland.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Sharing our stories has been a lifelong passion.
I got to read with him and he had such a calming influence. He's such a professional. He's, done the job forever.
For nearly half a century, the boy from North Queensland has had a front row seat to history, including in 2006 when history came knocking in the form of Cyclone Larry.
This is my old hometown, but make no mistake, it looks like a battle zone.
Or as the nation held its breath, waiting for rescuers to reach miners trapped underground in Beaconsfield.
Excitement is mounting. This looks like being the last night underground for Todd Russell and Brant Webb as the rescue mission enters its most critical stage.
In countless times of crisis, that unmistakable voice of experience has reassured Queenslanders.
Melissa, the floodwaters peaked overnight, and that's for the 5th time in 20 days.
When I began working in TV and saw Bruce out on the road covering stories together, he was always so just nice and helpful and encouraging for a young reporter like me, and I've always appreciated it.
And so many of us are fortunate to say the same.
He puts everyone at ease. He really is invested in the young journos, and there are so many careers today that have just taken off thanks to Bruce. He is a wonderful man and we're so lucky to have him.
Good evening. Welcome to Evandale Parklands, where we're celebrating 20 years of 9 Gold Coast News.
Of course, as 9 Gold Coast News viewers know, it's not all serious business.
Thrown in the cell, bail set at $500.
There's no story too big or small for our newsmen.
Flan, never again.
Trust us, what you see on air is what you get behind the scenes.
Bruce is so funny, and not many people know this, but he has an absolutely wicked sense of humour.
Of course, we only share him with his adoring family. Married to wife Marlene for 50 years. They have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. There is no slowing down on or off telly.
Been a great mentor. I think that's one of the key things about Bruce, especially as he's, got older to that 70th birthday, but he's been a great mentor and just gets better and better with age.
And he loves it so much, I'm not sure he's ever going to stop. No. I think he'll be going forever.
Well, thank you for joining me on my first bulletin of National 9 News.
And here's to many more. Happy birthday, Bruce.
What a wonderful walk down memory lane that was.
I took a trip back to the 60s, from Elvis to ABBA. Embarrassingly, I shook my tail feather, along with 1,000 others at Hotter today, all part of this year's Seniors Week celebrations.
A blast from the past.
The Beatles and the Bee Gees and everyone.
Groovin' to the sounds of the 60s and 70s. Today I was centre stage for the biggest event at Seniors Week.
Yes, this is our way of going. Thank you so much for your contribution, and let's rock and roll.
Gold Coast's Young at Heart packed a full house.
10 out of 10?
Oh, fantastic day. Thank you.
Toes were tapping. Hands, well, they were certainly clapping along. Even some disco divas kicked up a storm.
I've seen them so many times and they're just so perfect.
Racing the dance down memory lane.
Reminiscing, it's called.
Even I couldn't help but bust out a few moves.
Congratulate you on your dancing.
Oh, thank you.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Until next year.
As Australia's population grows older, over 50s lifestyle developer Halcyon has launched a new initiative that will allow baby boomers to stay in their homes for longer. Halcyon Glades, a thriving over-50s community at Caboolture, has become the first in Australia to boast future-proof design elements that will allow boomers to age in place.
It's all about accessibility, it's all about manoeuvrability within the house, and it's all about if you're in a state that your mobility is impaired, that you can still live in your home and not go anywhere.
Livable Housing Designs offers 3 levels of security: silver, gold and platinum. Each is aimed at making homes adaptable to our changing needs as we age. Queensland-based over-50s community developer Halcyon moved quickly to embrace livable housing design, which is expected to become mandatory for all new housing by 2020.
So at Halcyon we've always built homes that are accessible and adaptable. We've always thought it would be stupid to build a house that wouldn't work for you as you got older. And there has been an initiative called the Living Houseable Design Initiative, and this has created a framework by now which it can be categorised as silver, gold or platinum. A rising standard of adaptability which a consumer can choose which one they want. But at a very base level, silver provides a future-proofing for when those things in life sometimes go a little bit awry.
The newly completed home is the first of 40 planned residents at Halcyon Glades that will be built to a minimum silver certification. Buyers will have the option to upgrade to gold or platinum should they choose. These homes will include features such as wider doors and hallways, hobless showers, and a step-free entry.
This is the first in the country, we believe, and we think that what it does show is that Halcyon loves to embrace a positive measure for our consumer going forward.
Queensland Minister for Housing and Public Works, Mr Mick de Brenny, sees livable housing design as an essential step towards easing pressure on the aged care sector.
As we're growing older as a population, it's important that our homes are able to facilitate us growing old in our own home. And so here at Halcyon, you can move into this house and no matter what your mobility challenges might be as you grow old, this home will cater for your needs.
Halcyon homeowners are embracing the advantages of the livable housing design for their new home.
We felt that because we were getting older, we had physical problems. The major features that sold us is their bathroom, and if you notice that the bathroom itself is quite spacious, and they've got safety features in there which don't appear in other aged care facilities.
Halcyon Glades is Australia's first over-50s lifestyle community to offer world-class future-proof design for its homeowners. And the beauty of livable housing design is that it offers peace of mind for when you might need it. I have to declare I am a member, which is why I had the opportunity to check out the newly refurbished Surfers Paradise RSL.
Now reopened after a multi-million-dollar makeover, tonight we have your first look.
Come on, let's have a look. The multi-million-dollar refurb of the Surfers Paradise RSL begins at the new entrance statement, moving past the same friendly faces at reception. Afternoon.
Hi Brucey, how you been?
Good, thank you. The gaming section transformed. Just putting on the finishing touches. But this is the real showstopper, a whole new entertainment space.
Here's the piece de resistance. This will be a TAB sports bar.
The bar boasting 42 taps. At 43 metres, this bar is the longest on the coast and, according to our research, the longest in Australia. Whew. Ross, you must be chuffed with this redevelopment.
I am. It was long overdue. It's a great facility now.
It's a far cry from the club's former look, but much of the same magic remains.
To conduct all the commemorative services, which we do in the park next door. This is a focus for the, yes, two up upstairs, this is a focus for the community.
I hope it's going to be an iconic part of Surfers Paradise.
And I think it will be.
Cheers. It has been a wonderful journey. Thanks to you for continuing to tune in over all those years, and please look after one another. But now, I have to say, that's the news for you this Friday. Good night.